Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Alugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, January 28th, talking a little bit more about the Jaguars defensive coordinator search. We know who the head coach is, Liam Cohen. We know who the special teams coordinator is, Heath Farwell, a guy who we're very familiar with, a great retention by the Jaguars to keep Heath Farwell in place when you've got so much special teams talent in the building and you've got a great special teams coordinator. Keep it together. By all means, I am absolutely on board with that. But we now have three names connected to the Jaguars' defensive coordinator job. And those are Patrick Graham, Raiders defensive coordinator, Aubrey Pleasant, who has been working with the Rams the last couple years, a DB coach by trade, assistant head coach, got some great experience on the head coaching front this year. We'll talk about that a little bit. But then also you've got Dante Jones from Minnesota Vikings as well. So you've got three names all connected with the Jaguars defensive coordinator job. All three of these guys have interviewed with the Jaguars now for the coordinator job, which means Patrick Graham has actually interviewed with the Jaguars 3 times already this offseason. He interviewed for the head coaching job twice, once via Zoom, once in person. And now he's interviewed for the defensive coordinator job. Dante Jones has interviewed once for the defensive coordinator job. Aubrey Pleasant has now also interviewed once with the Jaguars this offseason, and he is the Rams pass game coordinator on defense and defensive backs coach. So Aubrey Pleasant, he actually was able to be the head coach for a week against or in the preseason this year. They're kind of trying to get him ready for the next step in his career, and they allowed him to be the head coach during a game during the preseason, which I think is pretty cool. Whenever Sean McVay has that much excitement and passion about a guy, I think that means a lot. He used to be obviously a player back in the day, but Aubrey Pleasant is a little bit... There's trying to think of the right way to put it. There's some folks out there that have some questions about Aubrey Pleasant, and he was fired by the Detroit Lions. He was in Detroit before Los Angeles, and so you've seen so much back and forth between a lot of coaches and front office people between Detroit and LA, but he didn't fit with the Lions with what the situation was going on a couple years back, right? And they didn't have the most talented secondary in the world. I think there's no question about that. He was their defensive backs and pass game coordinator from 2021 to 2022. I think he learned a lot from that situation. And he spent 1 year as a Packers consultant in 2022, or the end of the season as the Packers consultant after he was fired. And then he's been the Rams defensive backs, passing game coordinator, 2023, 2024, this past year, assistant head coach and pass game coordinator. And again, he did have a game in the preseason where they made him the head coach for that game. So somebody who the Rams value a lot. And if the Rams value a coach quite a bit, I think that that's certainly somebody to keep an eye on, because Sean McVay is as good of a evaluator when it comes to coaching as anyone out there. And if you're going to be a high-ranking member of his staff, you're going to have mental acuity, sharpness, preparedness to get the job done at a high level. And you've seen most of the people that come from LA do a really good job. Now, I'm not advocating that Aubrey Pleasant should be the defensive coordinator for the Jaguars, but certainly he's qualified based on his resume to get an interview. Now, if he blows the Jaguars away in the interview, maybe he gets the job. But you've also got Dante Jones, who has really solid experience, is coming off of a couple years with the Minnesota Vikings, where, they've done a tremendous job with that pass defense, and really, under Brian Flores, being a menacing group with not the most talented bunch necessarily, but being very menacing back there. And he's another guy who does not have NFL defensive coordinator experience, but he was the LSU Tigers defensive coordinator in 2021, defensive backs coach, and defensive pass game coordinator for the Vikings from 2022 to 2024. So neither Aubrey Pleasant nor Dante Jones has defensive coordinating experience at the NFL level. That doesn't mean they can't get the job done. Like, everybody gets a start somewhere. Everybody becomes a coordinator for the first time at some point in their career. And if they're given the right tools and they have the right mindset, they'll have a chance. Having said that, I am in favor of Patrick Graham being the Jaguars defensive coordinator. This guy has proven it at the NFL level for quite a while that he is a very strong defensive mind. We haven't watched a ton of Raider football here, right? But 46 years old, has been the Raiders defensive coordinator for the last 3 years. And what you hear about him is that he is a tremendous game plan defensive coordinator, which means, so there's more than two different types of defensive coordinators, but there's two different types of archetypes at defensive coordinator. One is kind of Gus Bradley, right? Where we have a system and that's what we're going to run. It's not going to be overly complex, but we are going to master this system, and that's how we're going to win football games, by executing at a high level because we know what we're doing. And then there's also coordinators more like Patrick Graham, who can flip the game on its head week to week by coming up with new and different game plans and scheming for each individual matchup. And what's difficult about doing that is you have to be able to come up with a great plan. You have to be able to teach that plan and get your players to execute. And Patrick Graham has done that at a fairly high level in Las Vegas. And, before he was in Vegas, he was a defensive coordinator and assistant head coach with the New York Giants for 2 years. He was a defensive coordinator in Miami for the Dolphins before that. So he has a wealth of experience as a defensive coordinator. And with Liam Cohen being a first-time head coach, I do think experience could really help him out. Again, I'm not saying that the defensive coordinator they hire has to be the most experienced guy, has to have defensive coordinator experience. It's very possible that whenever Aubrey Pleasant or Dante Jones get their opportunity, if they're given the right tools from a personnel standpoint and, coaching freedom standpoint, that they could do great and have great careers as defensive coordinators and maybe become head coaches one day. I'm not putting that past them at all, but I think that Patrick Graham is a proven commodity in this league, and getting him to be able to work with some of the talent you already have defensively and then add to that talent in the secondary, I think as a defensive coordinator, you could get really fired up about Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead kicking inside, Mason Smith developing. And then, Foye Oluokun, a great leader. Devin Lloyd has improved every single year. You've got Tyson Campbell, you've got Jarian Jones. You just got to add a couple pieces in the secondary here and there, and you could have a defense that's really cooking. Maybe add some depth to the defensive front as well. But I kind of look at this as a really good job for a defensive coordinator in this league, as long as the Jags are able to get this GM in place as well and figure out the personnel side of things and upgrade that secondary. You've got a good job in a lot of talent. You just got to go make these guys, put them in the best positions to win each and every week. I think Patrick Graham can do that at a high level. So that's why he's my number one candidate right now out of the 3 guys that they have have interviewed, right? Dante Jones, Aubrey Pleasant, Patrick Graham. Patrick Graham's number 1 on my list. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. You can also check out genjag.com/shop. Pick up some new Duval gear. Just dropped our Lawrence Cohen 25 tee, so you can go check that out. The pre-order for it, genjag.com/shop. Y'all have a good one.